Oh, howdy all, grab yourselves a beer, it is time for some Path of Exile discussion. Today, what I wanted to talk about is the Harvest League challenges. I'm putting out a series of 3 videos that are going to outline all 40 of the challenges and split them down into 3 groups. So there are the 15 that I feel are the easiest, and they'll be the ones that I recommend that you choose between if your goal is to hit the 12 of 40 milestone. Then I'm going to have a second video that's going to look at the next 12 or 13, and that will be recommended for people that are chasing 24. And then I'm going to look at the rest, the hardest 12 or 13 challenges, and that will be a guide aimed at people that are either going for 36 challenges or that are going for 40. I have got my notes in the form of a spreadsheet, which I will be putting online, and there will be a link to this as well. So, without further ado, let's go through these various challenges. And I'm going to go through the 15 easiest ones and discuss what I think is important to know about them. So first up we have preparation. Preparation is exactly what it says. It is preparation. This looks at some of the defensive stats that your character can have. So the first one goal is to have a combined total of 1,000 armor, evasion, and energy shield. Easiest way to do this is to pop a granite flask. Boom, I now have 3,000 armor. That is the really easy way to do it. You'll be able to pick up granite flasks and also jade flasks, which will do the same thing for evasion, from about Act 3 or 4, although they're somewhat uncommon until maybe Act 8 or 9. However, you'll also probably just get this without trying, and you'll get this without trying maybe by about Act 6 or 7. It's basically just a little bit of a little bit of preparation and introducing these 3 defensive layers. So for those of you that aren't familiar with these layers, armor makes enemies' hits do less damage to you and has a disproportionate effect on small hits. So it's very good defensively against enemies that deal a lot of small physical hits in succession. Porcupines, for instance. Evasion makes enemies frequently miss you, and Energy Shield provides an extra buffer before you start losing life. Next up we have a combined total of 100 life regen or mana regen per second. Easiest way to do this is to use a high level stone golem. This stone golem provides 105 life regeneration per second. So that gets me there on its own. And wouldn't even need to be as high level as it is. This is a level 20 stone golem, but even a level 12 one would get me most of the way. That might give me 65 or 70, and then any other source of life regen or mana regen will get you over the line. However, you'll probably get this without trying anyway, because you will just pick up incidental life regen when you're chasing life nodes on the tree. The only exception is if you've decided to be really gutsy and start with an energy shield based character, in which case the mana regen you'll be able to get. Next up we have allocate 3 notable passive skills. So notables are not the biggest ones like Elemental Equilibrium here. These nodes are called keystones. Notables are these ones, like Forethought, like Dreamer, the larger nodes that have better stats than the small nodes. You will get 3 of these without trying to, and you will definitely have them probably by the time you're at Act 5. Next up we have complete Harvest Encounters 1. So this is all about very, very, very basics of the Sacred Grove. So let's go for a quick walk over to the Sacred Grove. This is a new zone that you will find you've got access to from early in Act 1. And you'll find seed caches in every zone in the storyline, except the very first one, and in every single map that you run after you've completed the storyline. These will generally disgorge large numbers of seeds in maps. It's not uncommon to get 20 or more. And you'll be able to plant, once you're given a collector, you drop your collector down somewhere and press this button, auto plant wild seeds nearby, and all your purple seeds will be placed near it. Then do the same with yellow, as I've done down here. You don't need to set up the garden the same way I've got it. In fact, mine's not particularly min-maxed. And these are the blue seeds. These tier 1 seeds, planting one is just as simple as I say as going up to one of these collectors and depositing all the vivid seeds you own. So that's how that works. Very simple. Harvest a seed is a case of you need to have at least 8 seeds near a collector and then just press that begin harvesting life force, and then you'll have to fight the monsters that grow out of them. 24 monsters at once is no joke early on, but you'll quickly get used to it. Really, it's a test of monster control and damage application, so you need to be able to hit multiple enemies at once, but you'll have no trouble with that because the monsters aren't super tough. So that one's really easy. That one's basically a freebie. It's just about, it's a very basic tutorial to the new mechanics. Complete these quests. This requires you to get to Act 10. And that's all there really is to it. No Love for Old Ghosts requires Act 10 from memory. The rest of these are just side quests. Wings of Vastri is in Act 8. And you'll then be able to do all of these, get yourself a few terrible rewards, although the Great White Beast is now worth doing. The Great White Beast now drops a Quicksilver Flask that is magic and of a high enough item level to get the mod of Adrenaline on it. Defeat these Act Bosses 1 is straightforward. If you're having real trouble with any of these bosses, then definitely ask about the mechanics of it, because there's probably something you're missing. None of them are particularly difficult, although Katava has really deadly trash mobs, as well as having a couple of attacks that if they catch you off guard can kill you, and first time you do the fight, there's no shame to dying to those because you won't know them, but once you've learned them, they're very easy to dodge. His trash mobs, however, are very dangerous. Anyway, practice will make perfect on those fights, and if you're really struggling, there's plenty of other players that will help you with them. Complete Encounters 1 is tutorial into some of Path of Exile's history. So Rogue Exiles were introduced in the Anarchy League years and years ago, back when I started playing, and you'll encounter these from Act 1 onwards. They're easy. There's nothing really special about them. One or two of them aren't easy, but most of them are. They're monsters that are essentially that use player skills and that have higher hit points than the rest of the monsters in the zone, but they're not particularly dangerous anymore. Completed Prophecy is a little bit different. You will free Navali halfway through Act 1. Halfway through Act 1, and you'll be able to invite her into your hideout. And she has an option, Seek a Prophecy. This is a quest. Deadly Twins. And then I'll just grab the others. Sharpened Blade, The Alchemist. Some of these are very easy to complete, like you'll greatly enhance the quality of a weapon with a single blacksmith sweatstone. Some of them are more of a nuisance to complete, like a valuable combination, and some of them require you to find a certain map, like, for instance, the Unbreathing Queen 5, or Unbearable Whispers 5 requires me to go into the Lord's Labyrinth. All of these quests, however, you only need to do one of them, so just find the easiest one you can, and you'll be able to do it. Each one of these quests to take costs a silver coin. One of those usually drops in the Act 1 zone called the Ledge, and then, not the Ledge, sorry, the Climb, the one after the Ledge, and then after that, you'll get them maybe one in every 20 zones or so. Placing harvest infrastructure. This all comes down to getting a horticrafting station. Horticrafting stations can't be acquired until you are fighting Tier 2 seeds. So the core mechanics of the harvest encounters, let's go back into the Sacred Grove for a second. And you will kill all of these Tier 1 monster packs, these Tier 1 seed packs, and when you do so, they will grant you a reward called Condensed Fertilizer. That goes into these storage tanks. This can then be used to grow advanced plants. So having a quick look here, this is a Tier 4 seed. These are Wild Thorn Fruit. This is one of the sort of second tier of bosses. This is Tier 3, this Wild Infestation Queen Bulb. More Tier 3s. Then there's some Tier 2 monsters around as well. Tiers 2, 3, and 4 require you to use these dispersers to turn the fertilizer that is found, fertilizer being the name I use for condensed life force, turn the fertilizer in these storage tanks into fuel to grow these advanced plants. In order to be able to acquire a horticrafting station, you are going to need to do a bunch of this fertilizing, and then when you've got a field that is mostly Tier 2 seeds, you can have a fair number of Tier 1 sprinkled in, and you harvest it. At that point, you will then be able to get enough life force from that craft to make your first Hoarder crafting station. I suggest doing this as quickly as is reasonably possible, because Hoarder crafting stations let you store up powerful crafts for later use, and they are tremendously powerful. Anyways, other than this, everything in here is pretty trivial to do. Complete Encounters 2 is the next one I want to talk about. This requires you to get to about Act 8. So, complete an Abyss. Abysses will start appearing in 10% of story zones and 10% of maps from Act 6 onwards. And it's just a case of run over the greenish crack in the ground and then follow it. It will run away from you and it will start disgorging monsters as it goes, and you'll just want to fight those monsters. Once you've killed about 75% of the monsters, the Abyss will decide to do one of three things. It will either run to a new location, in which case you repeat the process, or it will turn into a treasure chest, or it will turn into an opening to a zone called the Abyssal Depths. Once it does either of the last two things, you have won your Complete Encounters to complete an Abyss. Complete a Delve Encounter at depth 20 or deeper. Requires you to be able to kill level 53 monsters and kill them fast, and just is an introduction to the Delve Mines. This will be really basic, and all you need to do is, at some point late in the storyline, so ideally like once you're starting to get into, maybe even into maps or in Act 10, just talk to Nico, and he will take you to the Delve Mines, and you'll be able to run one of these zones. He will let you start close to depth 20, which means that you'll just need to run one, maybe two or three zones, and you'll then have your completion here. Vile Side Area. So these are in, again, 10% of zones as far as I can tell, from most of the acts and also into maps. One very important warning. Whilst not the case in maps, these Vile Side Areas will be rare and they'll have a number of mods on them, and they'll just function like a map except with harder monsters. But in the leveling content, in the acts, you will find that some of these will have a mod called Reflect. That can't roll on the rare ones in maps, but this will cause your attacks to deal a portion of the damage you deal back to you, and this will either be Physical Reflect, which will cause physical damage you deal to be dealt back to you at about 10 to 15% effectiveness, or Elemental Reflect. If you have a Reflect mod on a Vile Side Area, don't do it if your character deals any damage of that type. Otherwise, you will just end up instantly killing your character as soon as you attack a pack of monsters. We have a lot less health than the monsters do, and we deal a massive amount of damage relative to our own health. So yeah, wait until if you find one that's got a mod you can't beat, then just wait till the next one. They're not that rare. Allocate a Major God Power. All you need to do is kill the boss of Act 6, and then even immediately or sometime later when you're in town, press the Y button. It might be different on console, and you will then bring up your Pantheon interface, and you just need to allocate one of these four. You'll pick up the Brine King one in Act 6, Solaris and Lunaris in Act 8, and the Arakali one in Act 7. So all of those are straightforward. Just pick one of them, use it, and then you've got your credit. Act Bosses 2 is just like Act Bosses 1. Kill bosses, progress through the game. You'll notice that you do need to complete Kitava, and I don't feel that you're going to get 12 challenges done unless you've done this one. Complete Harvest Encounters 2. The first one here, this is pretty straightforward again. This is just a matter of killing packs of harvest monsters. You'll be able to get all of these. In fact, you will get all of these long before you complete the Hoarder Crafting Station for Harvest Infrastructure. You'll get these without trying. Now, very important. Defeat Conquerors of the Atlas is a challenge that I've deliberately excluded here. Baran the Crusader, Veritania the Redeemer, Elhesman the Hunter, Drox the Warlord. I've got guides for these. They're all pretty doable for even, for a newer player. These are bosses that you'll encounter multiple times as you're progressing through the endgame content, through the Atlas of Worlds. The first time you fight them, they'll be pretty easy. Not necessarily easy enough that you can beat them on your first try, but you should be able to see a way to beat them. They'll then get harder each time you fight them. And eventually you'll start fighting the 4 Watchstone versions of these bosses, and then they'll be pretty mean. Cirrus Awakener of Worlds, however, is only available as a 4 Watchstone version, and is considerably harder than the other 4. Because you need to beat Cirrus, he's sort of, I guess you could call him the end boss of the game at the moment. I would say that defeat Conquerors of the Atlas is one that I would skip. Next up we have complete vendor recipes. Here, you just need to sell a bunch of things to vendors. Cartographer's Chisel. The easiest way to do this is to, and this is slightly, I'll give you the easiest way for each of these. Some of these are a little bit wasteful. Cartographer's Chisel. Grab a map that has been scoured. So just a plain map, not magic, not rare, no mods on it. And then use 4 Cartographer's Chisels on it, so it's 20 quality. Then go and sell it to a vendor, and they will give you 1 Cartographer's Chisel for that. In fact, why not just do that now? Going through the whole load screen ordeal. So, I'm just going to pick out a map, pick a map, any map, and then we'll go, alright, so let's grab this tier 5, this belfry, no, that's not magic. There we go, that's a white map. Chisel it up, I've used 4 chisels on it, I'm going to sell it, and there we go, I get a chisel back. Simple as that. Glassbow's Bauble is similar. All you need is a flask that is not magic and not unique. Quality it up to 20, vendor it, and you'll get a Bauble back. Jeweler's Orb, sell an item that has 6 sockets on it. These will start dropping from level 50 onwards, and you probably have them showing on your loot filter. So just pick one up, go and sell it to a vendor. 7 Jeweler's Orbs. You don't get 1, you get 7. Chaos, Chance, and Regal Orbs. Here, what you want to do is sell a full set of equipment. What I mean by a full set is 1 helmet, 1 set of gloves, 1 set of boots, 1 torso armor, 2 rings, so 1 for each ring slot you've got, 1 amulet, 1 belt, and then something for each hand. So this can be a 2-handed weapon, such as a staff or a bow, or it can be a shield plus a 1-handed weapon, so a claw and a shield, or it can be 2 1-handed weapons, such as a dagger and a wand. Sell all of these items in a single transaction to a vendor. Now they all need to be rare rarity as well. When you do this, the lowest item level from them, it will determine what type of orb you get. If the lowest item level is 75 or higher, you will receive a Regal Orb. If it is in the range 60 to 74, you will receive a Chaos Orb, and if it is 1 to 59, you will receive a Chance Orb. If all the items that you sold that were rare were unidentified rares, you will instead receive double. If they are all unidentified rares with the maximum quality possible on them, and this only counts normal quality, so this doesn't count catalyst quality on rare items. This is all about the armor and weapon quality. If they're all 20 quality, you will receive 3 of that orb instead. There are other recipes for each of these orbs. So for Chance Orbs, you can sell 2 rare items with the same name. For Regal Orbs, I think you can sell 3 rare items that all have the same name and that are all 20 quality. But the easiest one is the full set of items. Oh, and lastly, for Chance Orbs, there is one more that's worth pointing out, and that is the Straight Flush set. This is a unique item, a magic item, a rare item, and a normal item that are all of the same item type. So if you have, for instance, an ornate quiver that is unique, let's not use a super expensive one. Let's say that you've got a leather belt that's unique, a leather belt that's rare, a leather belt that's magic, and a leather belt that's normal, and you vendor all of them in one transaction, you will receive 5 Orbs of Chance. Next up we have a Chromatic Orb. You probably already got this one without trying. Vendor an item that is 3 linked with 1 red, 1 blue, and 1 green, and it can be more than 3 links. So it can be red, red, blue, green, or red, 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 blue, green. That will work as well. If it's 6 linked, then you will instead get a Divine Orb, which is worth a lot more than a Chromatic. And then there's a Gem Cutter Prism. Gem Cutter Prisms, with the Cartographer's Chisel and Glassblower's Bauble, I gave the more wasteful version of those recipes, which is to sell a single item with 20 quality. Gem Cutter Prism, that works as well. You can sell a single gem that is 20 quality, and you'll get a GCP back. However, 20 quality gems are a bit too expensive to waste in this way, and so what I suggest you do here is instead pick up gems that have got quality in the 10 to 19 range. When you've got 3 or 4 of them, and their quality adds to 40 or more, sell them all in one transaction and you'll receive a GCP in exchange for the lot of them. So for instance, if you had, and they don't need to be 10 or higher, you can pick up ones that have got less than 10. Just that in my experience, they're not worth picking up unless they're at least 10 quality. So any collection of skill gems that add up to 40 quality or more will sell for a GCP. For modify maps, here you're going to need to use a cartographer's chisel. Oh, isn't that great? We just earned that one in the vendor recipes. You're going to need to use a sacrifice fragment to modify a map. So sacrifice fragments are the keys that are used to access the Atzuri fight, but all you need to do is open up a map, but in addition to throwing in the map, you also want to throw in one of these sacrifice fragments. You're also that will add 5% increased item quantity to that zone. So it's like an extra stacking cartographer's chisel. Then you've got a scarab. Scarabs do much more impactful things than just adding a sacrifice fragment. Sourcing a scarab can be a little tricky. They don't drop in normal treasure. The ways that you get scarabs, they can come from Jun's Immortal Syndicate content. Although if you're not interested in learning that entire system, you will also get them semi-regularly from Blights, and also semi-regularly from the Delirium Mirror. Blights and Delirium Mirrors are map only, and you will find them. Lastly, if you're in a trade league, just buy a scarab off someone. Harbinger's Orbs are another one that's a little tricky to source. If you're in a trade league, buy one of these. If you're in solo self-found, what you're going to want to do is do Zana's daily missions. The first time you complete a tier 3 map, you'll be introduced to Zana, and she will give you missions when you talk to her. You'll be able to have her use one of her daily missions. You'll see that I've got heaps of them stored up. I think I've got 38 red tier and 2 white tier ones. And quite frequently, when she runs a mission for you, when she opens a map for you for a mission, you'll then find her in there, and she will offer you portals to a map where you will have to fight 2 Harbingers. Those Harbingers will eventually drop you pieces for Harbinger's Orbs. You'll collect them over a period of time, and you will get one by the end of the league, just by doing Zana missions every other day. Alchemy Orb, Horizon Orb, and straightforward, and Sextants will start dropping once you get to about tier 5 maps. Okay, turn-in divination cards is next. So this is something that is a little bit icky if you're in solo self-found, but it is very doable. It's very trivial in a trade league. For an essence, the divination card for essences that you want is to turn in 3 voices. This drops in every map that has 3 bosses, whether that be a map as hard as Vaal Temple, or a map as simple as the I think it's Courtyard, or is it Courtyard or Orchid? One of those. I think it's Courtyard that has 3 bosses that are really, really easy. So wide variety of maps have 3 bosses, and this divination card is really common. When you turn it in, you'll get 3 essences of the same type at random. Next up, we have a skill gem. The easiest skill gem one is the Summoner. This drops in a lot of undead themed and indoorsy type zones. So let's just quickly. You'll see that without even trying, I picked up 22 copies of 3 voices. So the Summoner drops in the Tower map, as well as a lot of indoors and undead themed zones. There's a number of other ones as well. The unique map, Wakahakanaki, I can never pronounce that one. The one with the Maori-inspired name, unique Strand map, it drops a divination card for a blink arrow or a mirror arrow that is 20 quality. That one's a very common drop, so if you run that map 2 or 3 times, you will undoubtedly get a set of them. So they're the easiest gem divination cards to get. For influenced items, the easiest one to get is a divination card that drops exclusively, as far as I'm aware, in Siege maps, and that is the Lord of Celebration. And let's just bring that one up. This is a little bit rarer because it only drops in one map, but it will drop you a Shaper influenced Scepter. will also have a good attack speed roll on it. This is something that is a reasonably common drop. It's not common, but it's not super rare either. You'll have no trouble putting a set of that together. For a duel, you're going to want a divination card called the Mountain that drops from the Summit map. This will give you a random duel with a critical strike, with the critical strike multiplier mod on it. Very strong crafting base in this league as well. Next up, we have Prophecy. For prophecies, these are probably the hardest. This is probably the hardest one to get. There are two possibilities that I think are the easiest. The first one is to farm up a divination card that is called Akel's Prophecy. Now, Akel's Prophecy is not one you can really target, but it drops from two different places. It drops firstly from any monsters that are added to a map by a prophecy. So if you're running a lot of prophecies, spending all your silver coins on dealing with Navali, you'll encounter monsters that have been added to a map by a prophecy, and you'll probably see this divination card drop occasionally that way. The other place that it drops from is from prophecy-themed rewards from legions, from blights, and from delirium encounters. Prophecy rewards are not particularly common, but they're not super rare either, and when you get them, Akel's Prophecy comes up a bit. So that's not something you can really target farm. It's not like you can say, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to run 20 siege maps in a row and I will get this done. But just by making sure that you always do legions, always do blights, and also always do metamorphs as well, and pick prophecy rewards when they're available, you'll get this in time. 2 implicit unique item. For this, you're going to want to run the Sunken City map. You're going to want to use the favored map system to make Sunken Cities drop more often for you. So Sunken City is in... There it is. Sunken City map is in the New Vestia section of the Atlas. So if you've got access to the favored map system, you can bias your map drops in favor of Sunken Cities and run it, and you will eventually get yourself a set of cards called Arrogance of the Vaal. The Arrogance of the Vaal is turns in for a 2 implicit corrupted random unique item. Most of the drops that you get for it will be rubbish, but it has huge jackpot potential, and it's also just a lot of fun to turn that card in. Next up, we have Complete Harvest Encounters 3. What you need to do here is complete all of the different Tier 1 seed encounters. Now, the Tier 1 seeds, each of the colours, so there's Primal is purple, Vivid is yellow, and Wild is blue. Each of them has 4 common and 1 rare seed. The Vivid Thornweaver seeds are both rare and quite valuable to other players. These are the ones that provide a speed-themed craft, but they're not so rare that you won't find them. Likewise, I can't even remember which of the purple ones, because none of them are particularly valuable, the purple ones, but one of them is rarer than the others. And then for the blue ones, there's one that's rare as well, but it's definitely the Thornweaver that's going to be the hard one because it's worth more. I actually default to selling all of Thornweaver seeds, I find. You will find that if you run 50 or 100 maps, you will get all of these without any real troubles, and then you just need to grow them and fight them, and you're done. Next up, we have 2 last ones. So that's currently covered 13 challenges. However, want a bit of leniency so that you can, you might find that one of them is particularly ugly. Maybe you're in solo self-found and you don't feel like farming Sunken Cities to get turn-in divination cards. In that case, Complete Twin Maps is one that requires you to progress as far as Tier 12 maps. So you're going to need to kill the Conquerors of the Atlas 3 times each to get this far. And then all you need to do is roll maps to be twinned. What I would suggest is that you just get most of these through natural gameplay. So if you're using Transmutation Orbs on your low tier maps, or even Alchemy Orbs, and then Alchemy Orbs on all your higher tier maps, you're going to get this by accident at some point. You don't really need to target roll it. You will get it by chance, and then just complete those bosses, and you're good to go. Next up is Complete Rare Unidentified Maps. Again, this requires you to go as far as Tier 12 in your mapping. So again, you're going to need to beat the Conquerors of the Atlas about 3 times each. Your reward here is that your goal here is to run maps that are unidentified and rare. Now, there's a very nasty trap with this normally. and that is those same reflect mods that we mentioned earlier when we were talking about the Vaal side areas. If you're playing a character that deals mostly chaos damage, or that deals almost all of their damage without inflicting hits on enemies, then at that point you don't really care about reflect mods. In that case, fantastic. Just loot maps when they're already rare and just run them. But I'm playing a build that will die to reflect. If that fireball hit a pack of monsters, and I'm in an elemental reflect map, my character is just going to die straight away to that. I'm going to do enough fire damage to myself that even through my fire resistance, I'm not going to be able to survive. And so the way that I do this is by using an alchemy orb on a map to get mods that I can do. So let's demonstrate this. Let's make it tier 8. Let's go to my maps. Tier 8. And I'm going to take these tropical islands, and I'm just going to pick 2 of them, and I'm going to roll them to be mods that I can beat. You know what? I can beat that. There's nothing on that I can't beat. I can beat that. And now I'm going to apply a Vaal Orb. When I apply a Vaal Orb, there are a bunch of different things that can happen, and one of them is that the map goes unidentified but keeps its old mods. That wasn't that. In fact, that picked up physical reflect, which I can do. That doesn't bother me. That one, however, did exactly what we wanted it to do. That one just went corrupted and unidentified. However, it will still have the mods that it had originally, and that means that I could easily run that and get myself credit for the tier 8 challenge there. So that's the way that you create unidentified corrupted maps that you know that you can beat. They do need to be rare, so don't do this with magic maps, otherwise you will feel pretty bad for yourself when you run it and realize you just wasted a Vaal Orb and a map and you've got a lot less loot out of it than you otherwise would have. Anyway, that's the 15 challenges that I feel are the easiest in this league. Obviously, you might find that you've got one of the other ones is slightly easier. You might hit level 90, for instance, or you might completely ascend your character, and that's fine. Additionally, you might decide to skip 1 or 2 of the ones that I've mentioned, and that's fine too. Obviously, everyone's path to 12 or 24 or 36 is going to be a bit different. If you've got any comments or questions, though, fire away below. Otherwise, I'm going to leave it there. I hope you have a good one.